Ladies and gentlemen, may I please have your attention? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are now live with BB3 TV.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's happening?
Wow, 2 shows in less than a week. This
Yep.
is weird. This is very, very weird.
It just shows we're back. Welcome back to Dom and Tom's World. What is
Yep.
it? A Tuesday night, 7:30
Sure is.
Eastern time, as we used to do it, Tom. Tonight, interesting show again.
Always. Interesting.
It's a wrestling show tonight. We are talking to Lloyd Anoa'i. Anoa'i. Part of a wrestling dynasty. I said that wrong right there. LA Smooth.
There you go.
Part of a wrestling dynasty. Sorry, I was a little caught up on my words as I was thinking there, guys. So, Tom, fun wrestling show. We're going to talk about the past, a career, and what's happening. Without further ado, LA Smooth,
Welcome.
how you doing, brother?
Hey, gentlemen, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Doing good. Sorry, I pronounced the last name wrong there. I was practicing this for a minute, and I kind of slurred on my words there. So no disrespect.
You're not the first one.
Absolutely.
You missed it after you told him how to say it, and you guys got off the phone. He said it like 15 times.
Yeah, because I didn't want to mess it up, and of course I messed it up. I had to.
Oh, you a headbutt then?
That's right. We'll take it. What's happening, Chanel? Thank you for joining the show, and always good seeing you again.
Yes.
LA Smooth. Let's
Yes,
get
sir.
into it. You come from a wrestling dynasty. Let's start from your beginning.
Oh, I mean, let's start from not just my beginning, but let's start from how it all started.
Let's
you
do
know,
it.
you had my late Uncle Peter Maivia. I mean, you got my dad and my uncle, Alpha and Sika the Wild Samoans,
Mhm.
down to my older brother Samu, which was Samoan number 3. Rikishi, which was 5'2", and then Yokozuna, then myself, and then the list goes on to Rosie, to my younger brother Manu. I mean, we got so many of us. I think we're up to about maybe 17 right now.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. So this ran in your family's blood. I mean, it's just obvious. Where was your start? You debuted in what, 87, I believe? I did a
Yes.
little research on you. So you
Actually, in reality, 86. But they say 87, but actually was around 86.
86. What was that like? What was the first time going to the ring? The first match?
Oh man, I mean, talking about people get butterflies in their stomachs.
Yeah.
I had more than butterflies in my stomachs.
Right.
It
Had
was
fists and
rough, you know what I
cheese.
mean? But I was used to, being in the ring and helping my dad train the students when we had our school back in Whitehall, PA, the Wild Samoan Training Center.
Yeah.
And at the age of 15, I started wrestling, and my first match was actually in Pensacola, Florida, for my uncle Sika. We went down there and he had a show, and I ended up wrestling against Bob Holly at that time, which nobody knew he was going to be Bob Holly, but he started out and he was wrestling down there for my uncle, so I ended up wrestling him, and it was great, man. It was a great opportunity and a great experience.
That's awesome. And the crowd, you talked about the butterflies. I mean, you, like I said, you growing up with it and you learning from your family. I mean, it was easy probably getting in the gym and learning from those guys. But I mean, that was your first experience as far as you were kind of on your own with it, right? I mean, that was you in front of the crowd. That was the debut of you.
Yeah, I mean, even in the gym and training, it was kind of natural. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
My dad he trained all of us hard, even students. But I mean, for us, it was a little extra hard because he wanted us to be good at what we do, and to follow in their footsteps, which none of us could ever follow directly in their footsteps, but we're all trying, and I think we're doing a hell of a job.
Oh,
But my first match was it was all right before the bell rang. Once the bell rang, then I was like in a different world. I had to react to the crowd. I wasn't used to that too much, but it was kind of natural. But when I got in the ring, things started falling together. The match started going together, but there was some things in there where I got nervous spots and
sure.
messed up a few times, but that's natural. That's natural for everybody.
That is natural. I mean, it happens with all we do, with our passions and
Sure.
with all. So once the bell rang with the end of the match, the feeling inside you, how did that feel? Walking back, the greetings in the backstage. I mean, all that.
It was good, but I was glad it was over.
Yeah. Were you ready for the next time? Were you ready for the next match?
Yeah. It was that, like you say, you get that itch. Excuse me.
That's it.
You get that itch. Well, after that, it was flying colors. I was ready to continue going and keep wrestling and having matches after that.
I love it. We have a question up. Oh, you got that, Tom?
Sorry. That's the problem when two people have control to bring these things up. One clicks it on while the other's trying to click it on, and it clicks it off.
Yeah.
What's the best wrestling moves you have ever seen? That's from MGS Paranormal.
That'd be Darren.
Okay.
Best wrestling moves that I've ever seen. There's so many of them out today. I mean, but I wouldn't consider them wrestling moves.
Yeah.
They're more like acrobatic moves because these guys make up all these nonsense moves that end up hurting them. But
Sure.
The original best wrestling move I say was probably a suplex off the top rope. That was the biggest at that time. That was probably the biggest wrestling, move back then. Yeah. But right now, there's a lot of them. I mean, there's tons of great moves out there. But asking me if I would do it, no.
No. He also has a question on top of that. Then we're going to get along with our next topic. What's your favorite match you like to do?
I mean, any match, but I like hardcore.
Hardcore? Okay. Darren, your next question, we're actually going to get into a little bit later. So we're going to save that question. We're going to talk about going on the road now. You were able to travel overseas, on with your career, like overseas. You talked about the UK. You had a huge career in Puerto Rico too, right? From what I started to read.
Yes. I've probably went around this world twice already. I wrestled a lot in Europe. I mean, I used to go to Germany like 4 times a year, Italy 4 times, 5 times a year. Austria, which is right next to Germany. That's one of my favorite places to go, believe it or not. And also Qatar, I'm their heavyweight champion right now. But I've been to so many places, even the Middle East, like Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, even in the Orient. I mean, I've been to Japan. My first tour in 1990 or 91, I went to Japan the first time, and I ended up staying there for 3 months, and I fell in love with it. And ever since then I've been back to Japan about 6 times, and I would like to do one more tour back over there. One more shot in Japan.
Now, awesome. Looking through the eyes of you, seeing the crowds in different countries compared to United States and all, how's the feeling with the crowds in the different countries and how they react? I mean, how does that feel to somebody like myself who will never get to experience going down that ramp, going into those ropes and feeling the crowds and feeling the different crowds? How does it feel from all over the world, from the different areas?
Well, it's different in a lot of the other countries because everybody knows who you are from the States, and in the States you see them, they're going to cheer you, you're going to boo you. But when you go to other states, other countries, they're just happy to see you. So whether you're a bad guy, a good guy, they're cheering because they're just happy to see American wrestlers, and that's including Japan. But in Japan, they're a different type of, should I say, crowd. They have a different element of doing things where they don't yell and they don't scream. They're more of the ooh when you do a big move, or if you do something great, they clap. So they're a little different over there. But when you go over to Germany and Italy and all those other places, I mean, the best place probably I would say for crowd reaction besides the United States is Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico,
they're they're 150% into professional wrestling. I
yeah,
mean, you go over there, they're straight wrestling fans. I mean, you go the older people, especially the older people, they really enjoy the wrestling, and so today they think it's real. I mean, they'll go out there and they'll try to hurt you. I've been to a lot of things in Puerto Rico where I've had a lot of things done. We've been in riots. I mean, I had a gun put to my head. I got
Wow.
cut arm from fans. There's a lot of things, and I'm not saying anything bad about the Puerto Rico and the fans there. It's just that they truly love their wrestling.
yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And I looked into, I've never really looked into Puerto Rico as being. I just didn't know that how big they were into wrestling. I always thought like more so Japan and Mexico, but not Puerto Rico. And that's when I started reading on you. I mean, that's just interesting to hear. I mean, that's opening my eyes to an avenue that I didn't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I believe it was Backlash that was in Puerto Rico just a few months ago.
I don't, I'll be honest with you. I don't really watch the new wrestling as much as I did in the 90s, and I like going to shows. Nicholas Vick with the Knockout Wrestling and everything. I love going to the shows. I love supporting up and coming wrestlers. I love meeting the old legends who started the game. I appreciate that more aspect. I don't like much of the showmanship that's put on much anymore. This stage. I liked the old wrestling.
Yeah, it is different. Like even like you say, like whether you're a good guy or a bad guy nowadays, there's no like from when I was watching briefly again, like say in the last 10 years, like I watched a couple. It's like there doesn't seem to be a definitive line anymore as much as there used to be between good guys and bad guys. Any given person, whether they consider good or bad, could turn out to be a jerk. You know what I mean? And whereas in the older days, say back in the days of like Hulk Hogan and all them in the WWF, like you knew who was bad, who was good. Yeah. Sometimes they would jump ship and switch to the other side, but it was still more definitive than now.
Yeah, well, because they idolized their good guys and they hated their bad guys. Now, as I should put it in wrestling terms, a bad guy is a heel, and a good guy is a babyface. There is no more sympathy for babyface for good guys anymore because it seems like they don't believe in it anymore, and that's what kind of hurts the business because for example, I use Shawn Michaels all the time because he's probably the last one that I've seen besides Dolph Ziggler, which is in WWE right now, but that would get the sympathy of the people when he got hurt because they believed in it.
Right.
So right now, you could go over there and you hit a guy with a big move, and right when you go to pick him up, he's like Superman, and it just the concept of it is not there anymore. You know what I mean? If you a lot of these guys will go out there, and I think they're just more showmanship, and I believe a lot of them, and I'm just speaking from my heart. A lot of them, they don't have the heart for the wrestling business. A lot of them are in there for the showmanship, for the television, for the glory. I mean, and I can't respect somebody like that because of we're actually in this business, and not just me and our family, but a lot of these guys are in there because you got guys that that paved the road for all of us.
Absolutely.
Like my dad and my uncle and all the guys, Bruno Sammartino, all those. So, we have to respect that. And I think the respect for the wrestling business is pretty much gone.
You going on to your story, like kind of piggybacking on it. Think about the guys before these new generation, the cars they all rode in together when everybody, had no money, splitting hotel rooms. I remember reading stories about, I guess it was either Big Show or Stone Cold eating just raw potatoes, just trying to get on the road and leaving the families behind. This is, they put their own life and their own, family legacy, for a career to to have, what is it, the stepping stone of making yourself, what is it called, a legend, or
Yeah, or even a superstar.
a
I mean,
superstar? Yeah,
I did it when I was younger.
sure.
I got my two older kids. I was there for them, but still, I wasn't around a lot for them because I was
Yeah,
on the road a lot. And I kind of regret it now, but it was something I had to do in order to put food on the table and to do something that I loved, a lot. So
yeah,
therefore,
Yeah.
there are a lot of struggles, and there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to take if you want to be in the wrestling business,
sure.
and the only way you can do that is if you have if you're married, if you have a girlfriend, or if you have a wife, if they understand the wrestling perspective of it, and they know that you have to do what you have to do.
No, for sure. Now, let's go back into that then. Knowing you had to be on the road for things. I mean, there's times where, let's talk about that. Let's really dive into it. Let's go back into in time of an upcoming wrestler. I'm probably you had to come up with the money for gas, the rides. I'm sure you were probably sore right after an event, knowing you had to get right to the next one, finding a hotel room, either whether it's for a couple hours. Can you literally bring us into that aspect of that life, of what it was like, the mind thought process, how you got through it?
I mean, you had to do it. You had to. It wasn't as much like that too much when I broke into business. It was, but back in the days when my dad and my uncle and all those guys, I mean, you would go and wrestle in the territory, and you would wrestle a night, and you're lucky if you had enough to get a 6-pack of beer,
Sure.
or you're lucky you had enough to go and get to the next town. And it was just a struggle, and that's what they did to make it in the wrestling industry. And
Okay.
when I was getting up, it wasn't as hard, but still, you had to go, and you were on the road. You were here one day. You had to make sure you had to get a hotel, and of course the gas. And then a lot of the promoters now would help you out with gas.
Sure.
But sometimes they wouldn't. So you had to go over there and reach in your pocket to make sure you made that town. So you were obligated, and those that love the wrestling business, you're obligated. You're going to make sure you make those wrestling towns, because if you don't, you're not going to make a name for yourself. Nobody's going to book you. They're going to, say, hey, this guy never made it to my wrestling show. Why should I use him again?
Sure.
Right.
I get
That's
it. And
the sacrifice you got to take.
that's how it is. I mean, that's what it
Plus
is.
the word of mouth that spreads after something like that.
Darren wants to know this too. And this is a pretty fair question. How close is the movie The Wrestler to the real life of wrestling business?
Oh my God, Darren, get out of my head.
I mean, it was pretty close. It's very close. Some of it is a little movie, some stuff put in there from the director, but it was rough. It was almost the same. Struggle on the road. You struggled. Some guys couldn't take it, and they were always in pain. And next thing you know, they instead of Tylenol and aspirin, just wasn't doing it for them. So
Yeah.
they would go to the pain pills, and if it wasn't that, it was the drinking, just to take the pain away. But it wasn't like that all the time. It wasn't like that for everybody, because everybody
Sure.
didn't go that route. Some of them just dealt through the pain. Like when I was young, I never did it. I dealt with the pain. I can
Yeah.
remember a time when I wrestled Steiners one night, and I ended up hyperextending my knee on the top rope. And then the next night, I had to wrestle against the Smoking Guns, which was Billy Gunn and his partner.
Yeah.
And the office was telling me Chief J Strongbow and all those, I had Sergeant Slaughter were in charge at the time. They was like, hey, kid, your knee's messed up. You can't go out there like that. We'll scratch it and, just take the day off. And my dad asked me, he goes, son, are you okay? You sure, going to take you? I said, no. I said, Dad, give me something. They wrapped it up. The doctor had to wrap it up, so I'm good. So even though I was hurting, but I wanted to make sure that I was out there and I did my job. So I went out there, wrapped my knee up, and I went in the ring, and you couldn't even tell that I was hurt.
Sure.
Because
And
that, you get in that ring, and you become a different person. I mean, you forget about everything. You're in there, that injury, you don't feel it no more. It's the adrenaline. The adrenaline kicks in, and that's all that happens. You just forget about everything.
And your opponent do they take care of you in the ring too as well too, to make sure like you're stable and all that, to make sure you're getting through the match as well? Because you don't want a sloppy match, right?
Yeah, but if the other guy knows about it.
Sure.
Sometimes they don't know about it, and you end up getting hurt more. But that's a chance you got to take.
Wow, that's interesting. All right. Well, you brought up, the people you wrestled, like the Steiners and Billy Gunn. Let's talk about the you were in the World Wrestling Federation from what, 92, 93? Contracted in or wrestling on the road?
92 and 93, and then like under 93, maybe about 2 years in the beginning. And then they wanted to come up with a character for me, and I wasn't kind of comfortable doing it because if you're going to do a character and you want to get this persona, you want to learn it. So I didn't just want to jump in it and then fall on my face.
Right.
So I told my dad, send me somewhere, let me learn this person, this character that they want me to be. So my dad called Carlos Colon up, and Carlos, of course, said, yeah, your son's welcome to come down here. But when I went down there, I did not do that character. He wanted me as the Savage, like my dad and my uncle. So I ended up doing that, portraying that. So I never got the chance to, portray this character that WWF wanted at that time.
Right.
So I stayed in Puerto Rico for a while, and then I went back in 95. I left there and went back to 95 and went back on the road for a little while, and then went back to Puerto Rico. And then before you know it, as I came home, we went and had a meeting with Jim Ross, and we ended up getting signed again back in 97, 98.
Wow. No kidding. Wow. There's a couple comments here. I can only imagine facing the missing link. Who is your most feared wrestler? This is from Tim, a good buddy. Let's keep that comment up there.
I mean, I hate to say it, but it would probably be my own family, my dad and my uncle. But, the most feared one would probably be my uncle Haku. I wouldn't want to mess with him.
Yeah.
Not at all. Would not want to mess with Haku.
Yeah, I've heard stories, throughout the years from people who met your family, that he was a very tough individual, strong as an ox. Just explain that.
He was just rough. I mean, he's got a heart of gold, but
yeah,
you get in that ring with him, man, he is just, he's vicious, but you don't want to mess with him, because if you end up trying to hurt him, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Right.
Definitely
Yeah.
not gonna happen.
I heard he's one of the hardest hitting people.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
He is, for sure. I've seen him hit guys with headbutts. I've seen him hit guys with chops, and I mean, just blood coming out of your chest from hitting him so hard.
Yeah.
He's a hard hitter.
That's awesome. So being on the road with the the WWF at the time, right? You kind of did road shows, right? From what I read.
Yeah, I was doing TV, but I was on the house shows, because back then, there were so many wrestling events, they used to split teams up. So if you were on the East Coast, you were team A. They had A and B teams. So you had the A team on the East Coast, you had the B team on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So therefore, you were on those teams, and you go on the road, and you'd be everywhere. So if you're on the East Coast, you would hit all around in Philadelphia, Connecticut, Boston.
It's an awesome city, by the way, Philadelphia.
And even farther south to Pittsburgh, and so many places up on the East Coast. So I was on that, on that side, and on that trip, and I was glad, because I didn't have to fly out to the West Coast. So I was over here, and I was actually on this side. I rode a lot with my cousin Yoko, and Rikishi, and Ray Stereo used to ride with us a lot, so we had fun. We had a good time, especially with Mr. Fuji.
Well, what's one of the funniest things that have happened on the road with those guys traveling? You had to have some good times.
It was a lot of good times, but there were good times, but there was mad times too for me, because I used to always drive, like I said, with my cousin Yoko. And he's a East Coast. He's a West Coast. He was raised up in West Coast, so he liked his West Coast music, and You know, he plays his cassettes and CDs or whatever. So, you know, I would go over there and say, you know, hey, let's try this, put this on. And I would give him some East Coast rap or type of music. And he would sit there and he'd listen to it. And then he'd turn his head and he'd look back at me like this. And he'd sit there and he'd eject the CD. And next thing you know, he'd look at it and he'd roll the window down and he'd throw it right out the window.
Oh, Jay.
And there was my CD, you know. But you know, I was mad, but there was fun times like that. And Mr. Fuji would be like, you have no more music, you have no more music. Yoko-san, you too much joke, you know. So, you know, we had good times.
Now, any kind of like with the hard times of the road, where you guys kind of had each other's back and stuff like that, you know, where it's like you had to kind of, you know, bring each other back up. You know, did you have a lot of times like that where it's like, hey, let's get on to the next event? You know, how do those times go? You have the fun times and you have the hard times where it's like you got to motivate each other.
Yeah, especially when you're waking up out of the hotel. Sometimes you just don't want to get up. You know, you want to get that rest in. So somebody's got to be the one to get us up and get us on the road and get us started. And Fuji was that person.
Yeah.
He was really that person, you know, even though I got up, you know, I would get up early, but Fuji was that person. Come on, let's go. We got to go.
Sure.
And, you know, and I was psyched up. So I was always ready to go. You know, I was ready to make that next town. You know, I was young and I wanted to keep going. I had that, as you say, I had that spunk in me, you know, so
Yeah.
I was ready. But, you know, you always got somebody there that's going to be the leader and make sure all the boys get in the car and make the next town.
Did he give you a piece of advice that you'll never forget? You know, talking about the motivation and stuff. Is there something that you remember being said to you, maybe from somebody else?
Not so much. Well, there's a lot. I mean, a lot of the guys I would sit down and talk with them, but the main person that I would learn so much out of this business is my dad.
Yeah.
He used to pound it in my head when I was young, you know, about psychology, about the wrestling and everything, you know. So I was nailed in the head at a young age, and it actually helped me for all these years that I've been in the wrestling business to understand the craft and learn the craft and teach the craft because of what my dad taught me.
Yeah. And this probably reflected on your personal life too, made you a good person, you know, because you are one of the nicest people. I mean, other interviews too, I've heard it being said, but when I met you, you are one of the most calm. You are a calm individual. You're very soft spoken. You're nice. You have a firm handshake, and you greet. You're just a good dude. You know, just from meeting you. We go to those events and stuff. So I respected you the first day I met you, and that's why I kind of want to work with you. It just took a couple of years later that we get to do this, and we're gonna do something, you know, something live with us, you know, you and I in person one day. You know, we'll just figure something out as we go. But speaking of that, how I met you, I mean, you go to the conventions as well, you know, representing who you are. Speak about that and how you do that and how you add that into your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of conventions. Like I just got done with one last weekend in Jacksonville, Florida, and I got a few more coming up. And so I got the Gettysburg Bash coming up, which I enjoy doing that. I love doing that all the time. You know, it's for a good cause, and everybody there is just so humble and, you know, have a good time with everybody. You know, I got quite a bit of things coming up. You know, in August, September. I don't think I have anything for October, but November, then it starts back up. But right now, I'm just doing conventions at this time. I'm not doing any wrestling because recently I just actually tomorrow would make 3 months that I had a kidney transplant.
Wow.
And you know, so I have to take it easy with it. But the first thing I did, I just got back this weekend from Rhode Island. I mean, not Rhode Island, from New Hampshire. I went down there because I'm working on a wrestling video game that they're doing, and I had to go up there and do the mocaps and do the, you know, stuff for the wrestling games. So it was pretty fun because that was my first time actually in the ring in a while, you know, just moving around and doing stuff. So I'm limited to what I can do. So the gentleman, you know, that's making the game, you know, he only needed certain things from me. And I took a couple of chances and did some things that, not saying I couldn't do, but I was kind of timid and scared. But I did it, and it was all right. So I was happy to do it, and it felt, you know, once I was in that ring, I felt that itch coming on, you know. So I can see myself maybe giving maybe another 4 or 5 months, you know, to make sure I'm healed completely. And you know, you might see me back in the ring doing a little bit, you know, if not, especially in tag teams. I rather do
Yeah.
tag teams now. That way I can continue healing and then go on and, you know, doing other things. But my main goal is right now is to actually continue doing these conventions and actually teaching the younger guys, you know, the craft of the wrestling business. You know, I'm trying to go back to WWE and as a producer or agent, and hopefully, you know, if they got a hiring process where it's on hold right now because they're combining with the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so once that all goes through, they're gonna be firing and then hiring. So
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully the you know the meetings that I had with them, they'll you know and see what they can do, and hopefully I'll go back then. You know, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed.
Cool.
You're back in Florida now too, right?
Yeah, I live in Tampa.
Okay, yeah, you're what, an hour and 20 from me, I think. So that's nothing.
Okay.
So let's talk about. I was watching earlier, and I just a little bit of opinions on things. So AEW to you, you talk a lot about WWE. You know, AEW, whatever consider over there as well. I mean, they seem like an up and coming old school style of wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, considered maybe you know going to them and talking to them as well, but I'm a WWE fan. Our
You
whole
are,
family's been with them
yeah,
for the years, and you know we're really true and strongly about dedication. And you know my dad has always taught us, you know, if you're you know be loyal, be loyal. And
yeah.
we've been loyal with Vince McMahon, and he's been loyal with us. So that's something that you know that truly stands in my heart. And I would love to go back and retire with the company that actually I started with at a young age. And you know, saying if AEW picked me up, would I go? If the money's right, of course
Yeah.
I would go.
Well, yeah.
But
Well, that's good.
I'm not. To be honest with you, to get in, I'm not really a fan of how they produce stuff and how the wrestling and all that, because even though it's a little, you know, they put a little old school in it, but the
Mhm.
wrestling, it just they need somebody in there that needs to put the whip on a lot of these guys.
I understand. I mean, you understand the business too, so I mean, I get it, and I like the way your loyalty sits, where you know where your family with the WWF and the WWE, and you want to stay and retire there. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just staying loyal to your growing up.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
Chanel wants to know who is your heroes outside of the family, and I'm guessing she means like wrestling heroes.
Yeah, I love Bret Hart, man. Bret
Bret
is
Hart.
a good friend. He's been a friend. The whole Hart family has been friends with our family for years, and
Yeah.
uh, Bret is a great guy, awesome guy. So he's I would consider a hero, you know, because of all he has done. His father and his family has done the wrestling business just like ours. They come
Sure.
from a big family, but I think we outdid them, and we did outdid a lot of the family wrestling families right now. But I love the Hearts, and another one is let's see. There's so many of them out there, man. I mean, I respect all the old timers, believe it or not. I love
Yeah.
being around them. You know, Ron Simmons is another one that I love to death.
And he's from here, right? Gainesville somewhere, I think, right? He was a Gator,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. I mean, he is just. I've grown a good relationship with since I was young, and every time I see him, it's always a hug and always talking, and you know, just he's just a very humble guy.
Yeah.
Well as Booker T. Booker T's
Look,
another one, man. I love Booker T. We always keep in touch with each other, and you know, Ray Mysterio, great friend. You know, so there's a lot of them out there that I really look up to, and even though there's some of them out there that I've been in the business a little bit longer, which not them, of course, they've been in the
yeah.
business longer than me, but you know, they're wonderful people, wonderful people.
You growing up as a little boy in the house, right? You've probably seen the best of the old school wrestlers coming and hanging out in your living room, right? I'm assuming like Andre and everybody possibly, right?
Well, I mean, just my dad being on the road and seeing these guys and hanging out with them. But when we had our gym, we had a house in Hamden, Connecticut when we lived there, and my dad used to have a ring in the backyard. So a lot of guys that came through there, like Chief Jules Strongbow was right there. He lived in Connecticut. He'd always be at the house. We trained Virgil. Virgil was always staying at the
Mhm.
house. There are just so many of them. Bobby Duncombe, God rest his soul. He's an old time wrestler. There's a lot of guys that did come through the house, and actually Hogan used to come to our. My dad used to put on a, you know, what we call as a umu. We do a pig underneath the ground, and my dad
Sure.
would do that for my younger brother's birthday all the time. And Hogan and his wife and the kids would always come every year to his birthday party. So we used to see him like all the time, and he's another one that my dad helped in the wrestling business. And
Absolutely.
there's so many of them. I mean, that I was raised around. Junkyard Dog, Paul
Mhm.
Orndorff, and the list goes on and on. I mean, those are guys that actually just used to come in the house and sit there and break bread and eat and everything. So it's really something that I will never forget.
That's no that was normal life for you. That's something, man. Just thinking about that. How was it with your friends going to school and stuff like that, knowing these stars are all over the house? Was it weird growing up like that, or was it just kind of a normal thing? Like,
Well, I mean, when I was younger, I lived with my mom at that time, so it wasn't too bad. But once I started living with my dad, and people started knowing, and people they test you,
yeah,
how
yeah,
your dad's a bad guy, this and that. I know my older brother had a lot of problems in school, and I didn't want to go that route. I didn't want to get in trouble or anything like that. But I tried to stay away from it and just do my schoolwork but you'd always get one or two guys that would come up and say something stupid, and it was up to me with I would get in trouble because I would end up hurting them or getting in a fight. But I tried to eliminate that and not do that, which
yeah.
happened all the time, but I tried.
No, that's great. We didn't dive into ECW at all. You want to talk about it sometime in the ECW and how was that backstage and those matches? Kind of different beast, right?
Man, ECW was the best. It
Yeah,
was great. When I tell this to everybody, and a lot of people know it, but a lot of people don't. But I actually am an original ECW guy. And
absolutely.
talking about when Todd Gordon had it.
Mm-hmm.
It was Eastern Championship Wrestling, and I was actually one of his top guys for him. I was on all his shows, and and it went through so many things where he brings so many bookers in, like Terry Funk was there, and then Eddie Gilbert, and so many guys came in to help the company, and I was there at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And Eddie Gilbert took over. He was bringing a lot of guys like his brother and guys from Memphis to come in and work. So when I saw that, I was like, uh-oh, I'm the next one. Maybe he's going to get rid of me. So I actually ended up leaving before he even was going to get rid of me. But
Right.
then I found out down the road when in Puerto Rico, when I finally saw him over the years, and he was actually staying with me in my condo, he's asking me, are you mad at me? And I told him straight out, I said, "You damn right I'm mad at you." I said, because when we're in ECW, I had a good spot in there. And I said, and you were just going to mess it up and get rid of me. And the first thing he said, he goes, "Are you crazy? I would never get rid of you. You know how close I am with your family?" He goes, "I would have never done that." I said, "Well, you should at least spoke to me and told me this because I was on the defense mode. I didn't want him to come up to me and say, well, we're not going to use you anymore. So I kind of like, I was young. I didn't know better. I just got up and told Todd, I said, I'm done, and I left.
Yeah.
But then we had the opportunity to go back afterwards, back in 98, yeah, at the end of 98, and work for when it was with Paul Heyman, Extreme
Yeah.
Championship Wrestling.
Extreme.
And Extreme doesn't even answer how the wrestling was. I mean, behind scenes, in the ring, I mean, it was just Paul Heyman took it to a different level, and I enjoyed wrestling with that company so much. Working with the Dudleys, working with the Gangsters, and Perry Saturn and his
Yeah.
brother. And it was just fun times.
Was New Jack in there at the time you were there?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the Gangsters. It was the Gangsters against the Samoan Gangster Party. That's what
That's right. Okay, that's right.
and we had some good rivalries with those guys, man. And New Jack became a good friend of mine. God rest
Yeah.
his soul.
Absolutely.
Mustafa's still alive. I think he lives in California, if I'm not mistaken. He's in Cali, and I talk to him once in a while. So, but it was just fun
New.
because when you were wrestling in front of that crowd,
Mm-hmm.
they enjoyed it so much and it just made you want to wrestle more and more and give them more that, because you're trying to satisfy this crowd. And there was not too much psychology at that time. It was just rugged, rough, and that's what they wanted to
It was
see.
it
And
was
that's
fight,
how the
fight,
company was
fight.
built up.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I absolutely loved ECW is my favorite. Like I said, New Jack, just watching him alone. I mean, it was just, you knew that was hardcore right there. I mean, they were all their hearts were in it. Now, this goes back to the question that Darren was asking earlier. I believe it was what's one of the hardest bumps you've ever taken. And I want to piggyback on that question. Is there ever an injury that you had to rethink of, like, how can we, not make this happen again, that made you maybe want to leave wrestling, something like that? You know what I mean? Because wrestling, I know wrestling's not fake. That's the one word a lot of people like throw around. I mean, you guys are professional athletes putting your body on the line. You guys get hurt. I mean, that's the bottom line,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He said, and that's the bottom line. And we're talking wrestling, and Steve Austin came in.
Wow.
And at the same time, you were tossing it up, so it was perfect timing.
Yeah, it was.
So, man, I mean, I got hurt quite a bit of times, but it didn't make me want to leave the wrestling business. I just wanted to heal up and get back in that ring. I can remember there's one time when me and my brother wrestled against one man gang and Luke, one of the bushwhackers, and I was outside, and one gang, he was a tough son of a gun too, and I'll never forget, he hit me so hard in the back with a chair. Actually, the edge of the chair, instead of hitting me in the back, it hit me in the back of my neck right here. And as soon as he hit me, my whole body went numb. And I was like, oh man, I hope he didn't break my neck, because he hit me hard.
Yeah.
And I was there. I couldn't move. I just didn't want to move. And then my brother came over there, and he ended up whacking him with a chair hard, and then came and checked on me. But that was one of the times where I was like, I thought I was going to be paralyzed. And then another time, of course, with I was in Puerto Rico, and a guy gave me a backdrop, and he didn't stand all the way up, and I kind of like pushed off his back, but kind of slid down his back. And while I was in the middle of the air, I couldn't turn completely over, and I ended up spiking into the mat, and I jammed my neck, and I went paralyzed. I mean, I really literally went paralyzed. I didn't feel anything. I couldn't feel nothing. I just couldn't move.
Yeah.
And I'm yelling at my partner, because it was in a 6-man. It was 3 against 3, and I'm just yelling at them. I said, I can't feel nothing. And they freaked out. They was like, oh my God. And then they went in the ring, and they continued the match. And at that time, they tried to push me to the end of the apron, and I was just laying there and hoping that I wasn't paralyzed. And then within the next couple, minute and a half, I just started feeling like these pins and needles in my body. And then I started feeling, my arms and my legs and everything. And then I started feeling everything coming back. And I actually went in the ring, and I finished the match.
Wow.
And actually, thank God that the referee, he was a physician. He was a doctor. So when we went in the back, and he checked my neck, and he told me that I just got a stinger. And usually that happens when you get a stinger, it'll do that to you. And sometimes it gets worse. But I was just glad that he said that. And that time in Puerto Rico, I really didn't want to go to the hospitals over there. So I puffed it out, and I had a stiff neck for about maybe 2.5, 3 weeks. And I wrestled every night on it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was rough. But I was like, am I making this worse? Or, I just got to go with the flow. So I just took my time in the ring. But, there were some bumps that I did take, some falls that I took that I shouldn't have, because every time I did, I just felt my neck, and I just screamed. But, I made it through it, and, the pain finally went away, and I got back to my old self and kept going.
Yeah. Now, do you have any advice for any kind of up and coming wrestler who's just wanting to break into the business? I mean, let's talk about, any kind of words that you would give them for encouragement. Is there an age limit to want to become a wrestler? I mean, for anyone who wants to try this or still going on, what are your thoughts on this?
You can start at 16. You can start training at 16, but 18 is the better limit, age limit. But I tell them straight out now, and I'm gonna get closer to this camera. If you do not have the heart for the wrestling business and you don't love it, don't do it. If
Mhm.
you're just in it for the fame and glory, you're not just wasting. If I'm training you, you're not just wasting my time. You're wasting everybody else's time because anybody can go in front of the TV and flaunt and do all that stuff. But if you don't have the heart and want to go out there and really wrestle, don't waste my time. Don't waste nobody else's time, and just don't get involved in it.
Well,
And
there it
that's
is.
just the way I am. And I tell it straight like it is because a lot of guys busted their ass in this business, including myself, to get
Mhm.
where we are is because of the dedication and the love we have for the sport. Not just to go out there in front of that TV and let people see you and okay, well, you go down the street, oh yeah, can I have your autograph, this and that? No. Uh-uh.
Yeah.
It's not all about that. You're gonna get that eventually. You're gonna get it with being in the wrestling business, but you know, go out there and give it your all. Get into business because it's in your heart.
That's
Got to be
right.
in your heart.
And I get that all the time. Everybody's always after my autograph when I'm walking down the street because of BB3 TV. Yeah, they see. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming to the end of our interview here, our discussion. I want to get into this. You said you have a video game. You're in a video game coming up. Can you talk about it? Are you allowed to promote it yet? I'd like to also know how to get a hold of you. If you have any merchandise or whatever, we could put up here for you. Just in order to support you.
Yeah, well, it's not out now. It's still in the process. They're still doing that. Still got a few more guys to, finish their mocaps and do all that stuff, and then the gentleman has to put it all together. But it's what virtual basement. This gentleman Ashton, he has made. This will be his fourth video game that he has made, not just for wrestling, but he's made like different like horror video games, military video games, and they're hot. I mean, I know a lot of
Yeah.
people that use them and play them. So this is going to be awesome because you got so many superstars that are involved in this game, like Kurt Angle,
Mm-hmm.
DDP. Um, I mean, then the list goes on and on. And if you go on Virtual Basement, uh, the website is virtualbasement.com. If
Virtual
you go
basement.
on there, you can see what the talent roster is. There's over 40 guys that are on it, and then you got a section on it where you're gonna have your legends, where you can buy those guys and bring them in. Like, we're trying to get my cousin Yoko on there, and then
Yeah,
hopefully you'll see my dad and my uncle as Wild Samoans, and then
absolutely.
Goldberg and all those guys. So it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a
Wow.
good game.
Definitely let us know when that's going to drop, and we'll promote it on BB3 for you guys, man. Just to
Appreciate it.
support you and just the business on its own. Send me some links, and we'll put you all on BB3. You are family to us,
Appreciate
and to me always now. I want to end with this by saying thank you for what you've done with the business, with wrestling. You've put your body on the line for us to enjoy a sport, to entertain us. Thank you to your family, who's been a legacy in this business as well.
Yeah.
They're a big part of my childhood, my family's childhood, and people all over the world. So you guys are
As you can see, I got all of us on the back of that wall right there.
absolutely,
I was noticing that.
absolutely.
That's all the pictures I put of our family, and
Yeah,
I got a few more to put up there. But I appreciate you respecting our business and loving our business, and even
sure.
in our family for what we do in this business. And like I said, it's not easy, but we continue to do it and continue to entertain the people,
Yeah,
and that's for the love of the sport. And
Right.
absolutely.
whoever would like to get in contact with me, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. You can get me on my Facebook. My name Lloyd Anoa'i. Twitter, I believe it's Lloyd Anoa'i _ Great Alofa, and on Instagram. I'm sorry, that's Instagram. On Twitter, it's just Lloyd Anoa'i. Follow me, hit that like button. Ask questions. Whatever you got to do.
Absolutely.
I'm here to answer questions for people, or just do whatever I got to do. If I can help you out, if I can answer something that you need about the wrestling business, I'll
Sure.
do my best to do that.
And you and I are definitely going to work closer in the future. I have some plans for us. There's some projects I'm working on that I would love to have you on. Just to
an hour and a half from me, so yeah, it shouldn't be a problem.
Absolutely. Even if we do, just start out grabbing lunch and a beer sometime, and then going over ideas. But as for now, I just once again I said much love and thank you for tonight, and thank you for what you guys have done. You guys go out, like, share, follow, subscribe, BB3 TV, and like always, enjoy. Yes. Thank you for tonight, guys. Another episode of Dom and Tom's World. We appreciate it.
You guys. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.